Okay, so without further ado, I leave the floor to Anastasia.
Thank you. And so I would start saying that I'm from Bologna, and it's this first time I actually come here on a duty trip. So it's a real pleasure to be here. The first time I come to Bologna for a duty trip, as I was saying to some of my colleagues yesterday, not the first time I come to this university. But I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. As my title in agenda says, I'm advisor on youth and security at the office of the OSCE Secretary General, based in Vienna. I have been told that you're familiar with the OSCE, and also today, this morning, my colleague Emiliano introduced you to the main features. Already we had some discussions, so I will not go in the details of the organization that I tend to call a strange animal, and only recently people have stopped confusing it for the OECD. So there are always yes, so I will move directly and shortly to our early warning methodology, and then to youth, peace and security. Also, I would like to add a disclaimer that I'm not here to give answers to your very difficult questions, only reflections. And also, so starting with reflections, also, I noticed that presenters today already mentioned basically all the elements of our methodology. So this makes me think that the methodology is good, but it's good then to have lessons learned, this kind of discussions to improve it and to see what we are doing wrong. So, okay, this is the old presentation, but we will skip it, it's fine. Okay, so conflict prevention and management remains at the core of the OSCE's activities, and over the years we have continued to develop our tools. But what is really important for us is our multidimensional approach to security. So we look at the multidimensional causality of conflicts, the politico-military dimension, the environmental dimension, and then human rights and democracy. What are our actions for? I will focus on early warning tools, and the first is preventive diplomacy. We are a political organization with 57 participating states, and the Secretary General, together with other high-level representatives, have early warning functions. So just to make an example, related to Ukraine, last 14th of February, the Secretary General provided early warning to the Permanent Council of the OSCE, the main decision-making body, drawing the attention to the emerging tensions in Ukraine and offering the good offices, again, of the OSCE to prevent escalation. Then we have Conflict Prevention Center. It's also based in Vienna. It provides political advice, support, analysis to the Secretary General, the chairmanship, participating states, and we also facilitate negotiation and mediation. And we have early focal points network. It means that in each and every of our offices, we have dedicated teams or a person that looks into early warning. Okay, yes. So maybe I will not use these slides because I have modified them, but it's fine. You can put them off. Yes. So our tools are preventing diplomacy, also fact-finding missions. Maybe recently you heard about the Moscow mechanism being activated in Ukraine. So we had a team of experts looking into the human dimension, the human rights situation in Ukraine, dialogue facilitation, mediation, and confidence building measures. And in all of this, our partners are not only the delegations in Vienna, the participating states, but also civil society representatives, women's groups, and youth groups. And I will talk about youth in a minute. But overall, so what we can say is that we have the toolbox, but then it depends on the interest of states to use it. When it comes to youth, there are new things that we can do as OSCE when a consensual decision is taken in Vienna, but then we also have our mandate. So there is a number of things we can do within our mandate without additional decisions. And one of the things is to focus on structural prevention. So really building long-term resilience against crisis. And this is also why we work with and for youth. We believe that youth have special needs, attentions and concerns, but also, so they are beneficiaries, but also they are partners. So we increasingly, we are looking into how we can closely work with them as our main partners. And of course, this is in line with the Youth, Peace and Security agenda. And I was very happy to hear this morning that it's also one of the priorities of the European Union and also, of course, the UN and at the international level. So just to give you two concrete examples. One is the model OSCE for youth organized by the OSCE mission to Moldova. And this is very important because, okay, it's a 5 days training for students, but the added value, it was launched 2013, and the added value is that it brings together young people from both banks of the Dniester River to learn about conflict resolution and the importance of compromise. So early about 35 university students or recent graduates from across Moldova come together and they reproduce the dynamics of the Permanent Council in Vienna during a crisis situation. So when I talked to colleagues about what is, if they see an added value, why are they continue to promote this activity? Does it make sense? Because sometimes it looks only like a simple educational activity. And for them, it's very important. They reflected on the fact that their core mandate in Moldova, the OSCE's core mandate in Moldova, is to facilitate the transnational settlement process. So the mission is uniquely placed to bring young people together. They believe that they have proofs, they have data because they engage with people also, with young people also after they finish the program, that they create a platform for dialogue and cooperation. They participants get to know the OSCE, so they get to know what are the tools they could actually use in the future. And also this helps strengthening their engagement in the public and political life of the country. So for instance, over the years, they met several graduates from the model OSCE that actually became part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Moldova. So they help increasing the capacities of youth in the country. And then the other example I would like to give you, and really I just picked a couple just not to be too long, but then we can continue, of course, the discussion, is of course Ukraine. We have the OSCE project coordinator in Ukraine. I was talking to them last week about what we can do for youth in Ukraine, and actually they were already extremely proactive. Last week, they organized in Lviv the youth dialogues about post-war times, the beginning. They are in close consultation with the Ukrainian authorities. And what they want to focus on is, one, needs assessment of youth in this specific situation, but also starting a process of gathering youth inputs about how post-war Ukraine should look like. So this was a request that came directly from authorities, and this is what they are starting to do with this first meeting that took place in Lviv. And when I talked to them was, in 2 days we have the meeting if there are no shellings. They gathered to meet, they managed to gather 14 representatives of youth organizations. And so they are compiling then all the inputs. But they also think it's very important to have young people think about the future and to also motivate young people to being engaged in reconstruction efforts. So just in conclusion, even if I was a bit too short maybe, when I was asked to reflect about the challenges and the opportunities that we have at the OSCE, so the challenge number one at the OSCE is that we are a consensus-based organization. So major new initiatives required agreement by all participating states. Maybe you have heard also and seen online that our mission, the special monitoring mission in Ukraine, closed because we didn't have consensus on the extension of the mandate. Due to one participating state. This is how we talk in Vienna. Also, we don't have, for the same reason, for the political climate, we don't have a budget adopted for 2022, and we are in May. So new activities, we have plenty of ideas and expertise, but then we need the political will to make it happen. Still within our mandate, we are also seeing what we can do. So we, in Ukraine, we changed the focus in our work with women, also young women peace builders that were already our partners. We changed it into how we can provide humanitarian aid, or how can we help young women peace builders in doing their work, in their humanitarian work now. Opportunities. We are on one of the few organizations to which Russia is still a member. So we remain a platform for dialogue and mediation efforts when the moment will come. So keeping the channels open and continue offering every week our good offices are a prerequisite for future peace talks. We have regional experience. We have field operations in the Southeastern Europe, in South Caucasus. Well, we work in South Caucasus, our missions were closed there, but we still engage there. So we have the expertise, and we can also support peer-to-peer exchange. For instance, colleagues in Ukraine asked to be put in contact with young people from Southeast Europe who could share their experience with young Ukrainians. And I think this is the most important one, is that we build the foundations for democracy and peace. The project coordinator in Ukraine, so the OSCE was in Ukraine for 25 years. We, in these last years, we engaged a lot with youth. We promoted dialogue among youth from across the country. And we read in all the newspapers these days that there was a big surprise about the resilience of Ukrainians these days, and also young people. So like the dreams and lives were destroyed, but still they were ready to fight and for freedom. So I believe that somehow we also had an impact. We working on for democratic institutions, working with civil society, we also had a role in changing the structure of the country. So to answer to the question of this panel, structural prevention is key. No matter what are the challenges, we cannot stop. It's the prerequisite. What we can do is to be inclusive. So really, this is, of course, is my message as advisor on youth, to make sure that we don't underestimate the role of young people, and also learn from the lessons that we and the challenges we are facing. I know this is not exhaustive, and I expect many questions, but yes, thank you for your attention.